Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim in Green Bay, Emilio in Tennessee. We got Jacob in Wisconsin. Here to talk some Green Bay Packers on this glorious May the 29th. Just we are just a couple days away from hitting June. The pool is open. The sun is shining. Emilio's texting me halfway through the day talking about how thick the air is. We
got receivers catching footballs in Green Bay. It's a beautiful day.
We had a drug bust in my hometown at the Mexican restaurant. It was just, let me tell you, buddy.
Emilio.
Yeah, it was a heck of a day.
The question is, how did Emilio make it back in time?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
I'm
just
crazy.
And I want to say this. I don't want to give a shout out to the establishment. All right, I don't want to give any extra pub there. I won't even say the city, although you guys have heard me say it hundreds of times. But seeing the owner of that restaurant flip the bird at the cameras on his way to the cruiser was something glorious. Anyway, how's everybody doing, boys? How's everybody's day?
Good, man.
Good.
Yeah. You know those electric scooters, they got some pickup on them. So I mean, obviously I can get back in time. It just almost ran out of charge halfway. That was my only worry.
I think Emilio was sitting in the restaurant when the feds kicked the door in, and he got out of there like this.
I don't know. I'm going to take over the world.
Right out the back door. All right. Let's get into it, boys. We had an article. Jacob, you shared this article with me from Dan DePatti. I hope I'm saying that name right? It's the his 5 most important Packers for the 2025 NFL season. We're going to dive into that. We may do a little bit of film breakdown. On the backside of this show, we'll see how long we go here. And I really would like to spend a lot of time on these 5 most important Packers. I know Tim started to compile a list of his 5, and it doesn't have to be your, hammered down, solid 100% top 5, Tim. I think it's awesome you're putting a list together. Maybe, Jacob, you put some thought into this too, seeing that you sent the article over. You probably didn't, I'm sure. But we'll dive into all of it and kind of get everybody's take in the chat. So hopefully everybody's having an awesome day out there. See everybody filing in. Thank y'all for being a part of the festivities here. If you would hit like on your way in, we're live on YouTube, X, Facebook, and Rumble. Anything you guys want to hit on before we jump into the 5 most important Packers for the 2025 season, according to Dan DePatti?
Nothing on the top of my mind. What about you guys?
Nothing.
All right.
No. Didn't Daryl say that we signed somebody? Did I see that? Sam Brown Jr. was signed by the Packers.
Yeah, another receiver.
Yeah.
And we didn't need any more, but we picked up another one, right?
Right. And I think I want to say there was a defensive player too. I could be wrong. I think there was a defensive player that got signed as well. But yeah, you guys know how I am about that. I don't spend a whole lot of time on the, those guys that most likely.
I do.
Squad guy. I know you do, Jake. I know you do, my man. But if you would you like to add something about him real quick, Jacob, or no?
No, I just think that you know how Doc Holliday in that movie when they're like, "Hell, I got lots of friends." He goes, "I don't." It's like the same when I hear, "I got lots of starters." I go, "I don't." I want the bargain bin guys. Come on, man.
Exactly. All right, man. 2-0 for this drug bust at the Mexican restaurant. Sound like a normal day here in Minnie. There you
Don't
go.
put that name in my mouth right there.
Take the cannoli, leave the gun. I think what he meant was take the enchilada, leave the gun. That's what that was. All right, let's dive into it, boys. Dan DePatti's going to be like, I don't want you guys ever mentioning my name on your show. All right. But let's get into it. I just pretty much took his list, compiled it, threw it on our Patreon group, gave him credit for it. I didn't compile my own list. I wanted to get everybody's reaction in the Patreon group on what y'all thought about his list. All right. He just recently wrote an article listing his 5 most important Packers for the 2025 season. Here is his list. I'll start with number 1, and that is Mr. Jordan Love. The write-up says no player is more central to the Packers' success than quarterback Jordan Love. In 2024, his second year as a starter, Love displayed flashes of elite play, but was hampered by injuries and inconsistent support from a young receiving core. If we get time to break down a little tape, we're going to debunk a lot of Jayden Reed hate at the end of this show. We'll see if we got time. Despite ranking among the top 10 in metrics like EPA per play, his decision-making, footwork, and ball placement need refinement. Love's reluctance to scramble, partly due to injury, also limited his impact. If he can stay healthy, harness his mobility, and build on the potential in year 3, Love could unlock the full potential of Green Bay's offense. There's not a whole lot there. Matter of fact, not much there at all that I disagree with. I thought this was very, very well said. Jacob, since this was your idea, let's get your take right off the bat here, man. I love that he mentioned the injuries because it played a huge role. I love that he also mentioned the fact that Jordan Love still showed flashes of elite play at times from time to time.
Yeah, and when I brought this article to your guys' attention, I kind of said, let's maybe compile our own top 5, really top 4, because I feel like everybody's going to have Jordan Love. It almost is without question. And it has to be. It's like a filler spot, especially like you said, with Love coming off of maybe some people would say not as great a year as they would have wanted. Obviously, there was multiple injuries. He's got the leg injury, the groin injury. Remember that? Didn't his elbow get like randomly tapped too in the middle of one of the games, like super bad? I think that he did pretty good considering all of those, scenarios and adversity they had to deal with. And that big if, it's always an if he can stay healthy, harness his mobility, and build on this potential in year 3, Love could unlock full potential. I really do believe that. And it's a weird thing because as much as I do believe Jordan Love is stand down the most important person for this offense and for this team, I have a weird, quiet confidence that if the worst scenario happens, that Malik Willis is definitely a serviceable quarterback. But even with that, I don't think you can say that Jordan Love's not by far the most important part of this team.
Yeah. I mean, he's stamped himself at number 1 on my importance list with, the greatest quote of all time, honestly.
I don't listen too much Taylor Swift.
I mean, how do you top that? I mean, he's already reached his full potential, in my opinion, right there. So, no, but all jokes aside, I think you hit it on the head, Jacob. Like, J Money's got to be number 1 on your list. This is QB1 with 100% health, for all intents and purposes going into this year. So it's all in front of him, and we just got to see him do what he does. I mean, I don't disagree with any of these points in this article so far, and that's why I made the comment. I mean, it's pretty much a given. You're going to put J Money on your list if you're putting top 5 most important Packers. If Jordan Love's not on that list, then you probably don't know ball. Let's just be real. He's got to have a spot on this list. So we'll see what happens this year for sure.
Yeah, right. Like in that little interview clip of him, 6 years there, 3 years as a starter. I mean, chasing a Super Bowl is the goal. That's all that we want to talk about. That's bring Lombardi home. That's the idea, and it 100% starts with J Love. Get him, 100% back, and just pedal to the metal at this point.
Yeah, I think the injuries played a very, very big role. He finished 12th in passer rating at a 96.7, right behind Jayden Daniels. Everybody talks like Jayden Daniels had this phenomenal year, and for a rookie, absolutely. But again, Jayden Daniels finished with a 100.1 passer rating. Jordan Love finished right behind him with a 96.7. Jayden Daniels finished with 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Jordan Love had 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. The reason I get excited over that is because the fact that he did that while playing hurt pretty much all year long, right? When you go to yards per attempt, Jordan Love finished 5th, actually tied for 4th in the league with Jalen Hurts, 8 yards per attempt. Completion percentage obviously took a dip down to 63.1% according to NFL Pro. And then when you look at EPA per dropback, which is a great measure, a great metric to kind of dive into, he's 13th at a plus 0.07. Right behind Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, and then above them, just by, minute amount of points, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. So he's right there, even with the injury. He's right there on the cusp of being a top 10 quarterback, depending on what metric you want to look at. The big thing I want to see Jordan Love do this year, and we've been pretty vocal about it, is that 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I want to see him consistently stay in the 30 touchdown column, I guess you could say, at that mark. while reducing it to single-digit interceptions. If he finished with 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last year, we talked about the key games that we lost because of the turnover differential and more specifically throwing interceptions. I think this team probably wins a couple more games last year. And when it comes to touchdown passes, he finished 10th in the league with 25, right behind Patrick Mahomes, who had 26. Josh Allen had 28. Guys, Josh Allen was the MVP. Now, I know he's got a rushing ability as well and probably the best running quarterback that's not named Lamar Jackson in the entire league. Josh Allen finished 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Jordan Love finished 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and he couldn't run, right? Above him was Aaron Rodgers with 28 and 11 interceptions. Bo Nix, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Sam Darnold, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Jared Goff, 37 and 12. Lamar Jackson last year, how did he not win the MVP? Can somebody help me here?
Yeah.
41 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions.
Mhm.
Dude, what?
With like 1,000 yards rushing at the same time, or like 900 yards rushing.
We know who decides. We know who decides the MVP results, though, right? So I think we got our answer.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Joe Burrow, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, with Joe Burrow throwing for 4,918 yards. What a year, man.
Oh,
What a year for him. So, again, the point there is Jordan Love battling 3 injuries, pretty much right on the cusp of being the top 10 quarterback. Some would say he is a top 10, depending on which metric you would look at.
I think that's a great point, Clayton, because that's the bar that Aaron Rodgers has set, in recent memory here in Green Bay, right? Like you said, try to be over 30 in the Tutter category and try and be below 10 in your picks. Keep that TD to INT ratio, nice and wide and more Tutters than picks. And, we have to remember Jordan developed his first few years behind Aaron Rodgers. He's seen that. He understands, seeing back-to-back MVP seasons and, elite level quarterbacking, what that looks like. And he certainly possesses all the attributes to be able to do that. And if not, meet the level that Aaron Rodgers has set as a standard here, he can probably exceed it if he really plays his cards right and continues to improve. So I don't think there's any reason to think that Jay Money's not going to take another huge step this year.
Yeah. CJN in the chat says, guys, 3 injuries from Love last year, and he still balled out. Does anyone think he isn't that guy? I've been pretty vocal. I think he's that guy. I think he is your franchise quarterback. I really do.
I've been saying that since 2020. Let's go.
So if he takes the step that we think he can, and I'm going to put a write-up together over on our Patreon group here real soon. I want to compare Aaron Rodgers' first 2 years statistics to Jordan Love's first 2 years, and then look at Aaron Rodgers' third year and kind of project, okay, again, we're not saying Jordan Love has got to play like Aaron Rodgers to live up to the expectations. That's an extremely high bar. If I remember correctly, his third year as a starter, too, would have been the Super Bowl year. So just saying, to kind of draw a comparison, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at just how well Jordan's played compared to one of the all-time greats in Aaron Rodgers. So anything else you guys want to add to the Jordan Love talk here on this list?
I would just argue that Aaron Rodgers came into a way better, well-rounded team than Jordan Love did as well, that had multiple weapons and very kind of set veterans that were leaders. And I think Love had to kind of work with a bunch of patched together type leadership roles and guys that were very young, hadn't came into their own. And then just to highlight what Ron says here, he says Jordan had 6 interceptions that could be considered all his fault. That's if everyone was running the right routes on 5 of those 6. I think he's trying to say that almost half of them were not his fault, which I would agree with. And if you were to plug and play those types of numbers, maybe give him a few more tuds, he's right there in the thick of things.
Yeah, I think it's a solid point for sure. All right, let's move it along to number 2 on this list, and that's Rashawn Gary. A dominant pass rush is often a hallmark. Oh, I'm going to say this. This made me think of this real quick, Jacob. I'm sorry. You mentioned the receivers that Aaron had, right? They also had the number 1 defense in the league the year they won the Super Bowl. So just keep that in mind. So very, very important little note there as well. Rashawn Gary, a dominant pass rush is often the hallmark of Super Bowl champions, and Rashawn Gary is the linchpin of Green Bay's defensive front. In 2024, Gary excelled as a run defender but struggled to consistently pressure quarterbacks. Remember that. partly due to his transition from a 3-4 to a 4-3 scheme. The Packers' minimal offseason additions to the pass rush signal confidence in Gary's ability to rebound. With a full year in the new system and improved coaching, Gary must deliver on his significant contract and elevate the defense to elite status. Now, check this out. What do you think, without looking at the stats, and I've got them right here, what do you think TJ Watt's pressure percentage was last year? Quarterback pressure percentage, if you just had to guess.
12.
14.
12, 14. Tim, what do you think the guess would be, man?
Oh, we're doing prices right. I'll go 13.
His quarterback pressure percentage, TJ Watt's last year, 9.3%.
Wow.
Boy.
Guess what Rashawn Gary's was?
14.
13. It was 13.4%.
Oh.
You know, you're thinking, well, that's just 1 year, Clayton. That's just 1 year. Guess what Rashawn Gary's pressure percentage was in 2023?
I've got a wild guess. I'm going to go ahead and just take a shot in the dark and say
65%.
65%. That's what Damn, I wish. 17.4% was his pressure rate in 2023. His pressure rate in 2022, 19%. That's Rashawn Gary's quarterback pressure percentage. So, again, he had a higher quarterback pressure percentage than TJ Watt last year. Now, immediately, the argument becomes, yeah, okay, I got you, but what was his by the way, TJ Watt in 2023 quarterback pressure percentage, 13.7%. Gary has, and then in 2022, TJ Watt's pressure percentage, 11.6%. Rashawn Gary over the last 3 years has had a higher quarterback pressure percentage than TJ Watt every single year. Now, the argument goes, yeah, but what about sacks, Clayton? I'm glad you asked. TJ Watt last year had 11.5 sacks. You know how many pass rush snaps he had, though? 529. 529 pass rush snaps. Guess how many Rashawn Gary had last year, finishing with his 7.5 sacks that led the Packers? Only 389.
Wow.
Yeah. And the year before is TJ Watt's big year, right, where he finished with, 19 sacks? Mm-hmm. Only 13.7%. I say only. That's a good – anything over 10 is considered really good, right? 19 sacks that year. But once again, he had 512 pass rush attempts. Guys, he's playing 85% of the snaps, as where Rashawn Gary is only playing – play time 58.4%. He's playing literally 20% more snaps. So you want to know why Rashawn Gary's sack total stays low? It's the rotation that we talk about in the pass rush. Because if you tack on another 20%, Rashawn Gary's probably got 12, 13 sacks. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to point that out there. And again, it doesn't mean that Rashawn Gary played his best football last year. I think he played one of his worst seasons. But with that being said, to pretend like it was a bad year, it was not a bad year for Rashawn Gary, especially seeing how he led the team in run stops as well. So, but get off my soapbox. Just want to point that out because I'm like, what are we even doing here? Let me go look at this real quick, right? Because again, if he, let's say he gets 3 or 4 more sacks, that probably means you may dip down 1 or 2 interceptions and lose a turnover
right.
for another game, right?
I was just going to say, what's more important to you as a fan? Is it takeaways or is it sacks? I would gladly give up, a couple sacks, even if they are, key moments where we need to get home and we don't. But if we're continuing to get takeaways and turnovers, man, I'll take it all day. I don't care about the sack percentage. I don't.
In fact, looking at his stats, this is actually basically his second best year of his career. In 2021, he played 17 games with 51 total tackles, 31 solo, 20 assists, 11 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Last year, 18 games, 50 total tackles, so 1 less, 28 solo, 3 less there, 22 assisted, 2 less there, and 10 tackles for loss, 1 less, with sacks of 8.5. So 3 less sacks and still had a forced fumble. So you're saying that he had a terrible year because he had 3 less sacks and in fact was just maybe a tackle off and less time with the reps there. So
he does this too, Emilio, while drawing the most attention, the most double teams of anyone else on that team, other than the prefab touch spy double team that Kenny Clark kept engaging in last year, right? And that was kind of, you could tell that was somewhat schemed up by Hafley putting him in at that one tech in the nickel 4-2-5. Daryl also makes a great point for those who don't know. TJ Watt's still waiting for the front office to give him that extension or heads up. So that's the other thing. He's holding out right now of minicamp because he wants a new contract. Rashawn Gary's in there getting to work in. Again, I'm not saying Rashawn Gary is a better player than TJ Watt, but to sit here and pretend like TJ Watt is just light years ahead of Rashawn Gary, I don't know what you're looking at.
I think arguably Rashawn's got the higher ceiling right now at this point in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think no disrespect to TJ Watt, the guy's a monster, but
right.
I think Rashawn's got a couple more premier years in him as opposed to TJ Watt, who's probably, dwindling down his career a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Next 3 to 5 years, probably.
Yeah. Robert Bertana says, Rashawn Gary, all around solid pass rusher and can stop the run. I think that's very, very fair to say he's a solid pass rusher. You know, maybe I would put him a little higher than just a solid pass rusher, but you're right, man. There's some guys that just run themselves out of the play. That's something Gary doesn't do for sure. So, Jacob, what do you think about all this, man? What are we missing here with Rashawn Gary? And again, he's not knocking him, and I think Gary should be on the list. Like if he plays even better than he did last year, watch out for this defense, you know?
Yep.
This was a tough one for me because Gary did not make my top 5. And I think if you hear my top 5, you'd understand that reasoning. But I just feel like he's been really solid player, but I don't think he's a difference maker in the way that maybe like a Myles Garrett would be, or Von Miller in his prime, or, one of those types of guys where it's like teams, Khalil Mack, they know where he's going to be. They're worried about which way he's going to go. They're worried if he's going to switch sides. I mean, I think that I can see, like Tim said, that his ability to have a ceiling type year is still way out there. I think that he could absolutely explode and all of a sudden have like a 10 plus, 15 plus sack season. I just think it's really tough because the bottom line is he just doesn't get the snaps. The number of snaps just aren't there for him as they are for most other pass rushers, and expecting him to do more with less snaps is just not realistic. For that reason, I left him off my top 5.
That's fair. And that's not an indictment on Rashawn. That's an indictment on the system that he's in, right? We talk about the hockey line approach, rotational type of situation. So I agree with that, Jacob. I think that's a great point. It's not so much to say about Rashawn. It's just how we're utilizing him and his role on this defense.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jacob mentioned people like Myles Garrett, right? 18.6 quarterback pressure percentage last year. And again, Gary's best year was in 2022 where he was at 19%. So that's how good Gary was when they gave him that contract. So, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. And people, they should have never gave him that deal. It's like he was doing crazy things that season for sure. So, all right. Anybody else got anything they want to add to the Rashawn Gary section here? Anything at all? Good? All right, let's move on to the next one. Go ahead, Jake.
I would just quick say, too, that on the back end, like, again, I referenced that Ryan's podcast where he looked at the pass rush in the back 8 games or whatever it was. Rashawn Gary's numbers, I think, were like, again, in like 16 or 17%, if not higher.
Mm-hmm. Greg Rice says, how many snaps? I'm going to need you to read this one for me, Tim. Can you read that for me real quick? You ain't got to turn your camera on, bud.
No, I see it. It says, how many snaps does Max Crosby get in a game compared to Rashawn Gary? That's how it's pronounced, Max Crosby.
See if I can find Max real quick. I think was he technically a linebacker? I hate that they do this. I don't know why people.
I think they had Crosby as an edge, right?
Yeah.
Is he listed as an edge or a D end or?
No, it's 2025 and we still got people saying defensive line and linebacker as opposed to just edge defender. It drives me crazy. Let me. I got to pull this up because I got to know what Max Crosby had here. Let's see. He's not listed as a linebacker. So defensive line, Max Crosby, 96.3% of the snaps last year.
Oh,
and he finished with 7.5 sacks and a 12% pressure rate.
And then when he got done, he took out the trash, he painted the fence, he closed up the gate, parked the cars. I mean, that guy does everything for the Raiders for sure. Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Gary, I remember doing that on Twitter too. I just put no names, just production. Who would you rather have? It was hands down all player one. All right, you just picked Rashawn Gary over Max Crosby. Oh, that can't be right. Okay, go check it yourself. It's right there. Free for everyone to see. So anyway, all right, let's move along to the next one. He has on this list. I know some of you guys may not have liked this. I thought it was kind of cool that he listed DeMarcus Covington, the new defensive line coach. New defensive line coach DeMarcus Covington faces a critical task: reviving Green Bay's pass rush. The Packers' decision to add only a fourth-round pick to the defensive line in the offseason suggests they believe last year's struggles were coaching related, not a personnel issue. Covington's challenge is to maximize Rashawn Gary and unlock the potential of Lucas Van Ness, returning the unit to its top 10 DVOA. You guys know I absolutely despise that. But anyway, formed from 2 years ago, his success could transform the defense into a championship caliber group, which I think they're currently there, to be honest with you. What if Covington does come in and all of a sudden LVN just cranks it up? How cool would that be? And I'm going to go pull LVN's numbers just because I'm curious now. But Emilio, you start us off this time. And what do you think about Covington making this list here? I know we talked about him a little bit this offseason.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think that you bring in a guy with a different take, different learning tree, and learned under Bill Belichick, one of the greats. And I'm sure he picked up a lot, being able to bounce that sort of information off of each other. I'm just excited to bring that sort of mentality in here. You got Matt LaFleur, you got Jeff Hafley, but obviously these guys are working with their position coaches more than they probably are working specifically with Hafley or Matt individually. So you're depending on these guys. I think that when you're drafting players and things like that, you got to know who your coaching staff is as well. I think Bucky and DJ talk about that a lot. Like if you're going to pick a guy that maybe has all the talent in the world, but there's no way your coaches are going to be able to wrangle him, or there's no way they're actually going to be able to get that transferred into, his game. I think that's a problem. Bringing in a guy like DeMarcus, I really think opens up the opportunity for our D-line to, really take off this year. And having a couple of guys that are veterans that, care about it, want to work to get better, bringing those young guys along too, I think it'll really work out.
Yeah.
You know what's two really cool things, Tim, that I didn't know until I can't remember what podcast they all blend together. I forgive me for not giving him a Covington, I believe, has never had a first-round draft pick on any of the teams that he's coached, which now he's got loads of them. And 4 on the line alone. Okay, that's pretty dope. And so he also, when he was working for Belichick or the Patriots at that time, and Belichick left, I believe it was Gerard Mayo's first stint. He was the defensive line coach there. But when he was still a coach under Belichick, they would actually go to Boston College and have like little mini clinics together and see, hey, what are you thinking? This is what we're thinking. What is your play? So in theory, Hafley / some of these coaches, Covington, even guys going back to like Isaiah McDonough, they could have all kind of had knowledge of each other, worked with each other, grown relationships, gotten on the same page. I think that's something that could be a little bit underrated as to how that coaching change could be.
I agree. From new setting, but familiar faces, right? That's like, you go to a new town or start a new job or something, and lo and behold, you bump into someone that you met along the way, and you're in a new place, but you're working together. I mean, I think it's awesome. And I think it's fair too. Like I kind of made a joke like, oh, I see we got a coach here on the list, but technically if you look at the article, it's the top 5 most important Packers. And if you're a coach, you're a Packer. So I think this is fair. And I think of all the specific position coaches that we have, I think Coach Covington is probably the X factor when it comes to this defense for sure this year. And I like him. I think, I like Coach Reb. You guys know that. You can check my training camp videos from last year with Coach Reb working with the D-line group and using choice vocabulary at times. But I think Coach Covington is kind of like a hybrid. I think he can bring that fire or keep the piss hot, as we say, when he needs to. But I think he's a very technical coach and stresses fundamentals, understands the game. And it's going to be really cool, to Jacob's point, to see him come into this Green Bay locker room and just have, the talent pool that he has to play with. It's going to be awesome. And then, you got Coach Hafley at the helm. These two are going to work well together. It's going to be awesome. And then we got, my guy, my favorite, Coach Ansley on the back end with the passing game coordination. So I feel really good about this defense this year.
Yeah, Covington, former defensive coordinator, Ansley, former defensive coordinator. I mean, there's so much, I don't know if talent's the right word, so much experience on this coaching staff. And what Jacob said there about them having that kind of that Boston College connection, this and that. We had Coach Chris Haddad on the show to talk a little Jeff Hafley because he studied under Hafley with some of the coaching clinics. For those of you who don't know, Chris Haddad comes from just a football family. They've won multiple national awards for coaching staffs at the high school level. And I think he was a former receiver DB, and that's what he coaches. And he came in and just kind of said, here's what to expect with Coach Hafley and how he is kind of a DB whisperer type thing. So just want to point that out, that there was a big connection there, and he would go to those coaching clinics. He's actually located very, very close to Foxborough, he being Coach Haddad. I want to say 20, 30 minutes outside of Foxborough. So really, really cool connection there. Now, back to LVN, since he was mentioned here. Last year, and again, that 10% marks what we talk about. Like if you finish over 10% in pressure, quarterback pressure percentage, pretty good year. LVN finished the season 11.2% while only playing 39% of the snaps. 39% of the snaps. So if you were to look at strictly edge defenders from last year's team, he would have the third highest rated pressure percentage behind Rashawn Gary and Brenton Cox Jr. Brenton Cox Jr. had 13.7%, finishing with 4 sacks as well. So, and Brenton Cox Jr. played 35.9% of the snaps. So him and LVN very, very close in terms of snap count. Pretty cool there. So I think you're going to see LVN take a step. And again, the people that everybody fell in love with, the guy everybody fell in love with this year was our boy, what was his name out of Cincinnati? I'm drawing a blank here. Edge defender that everybody wanted to trade for, sack leader.
Trey Hendrickson.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't until his third year that he broke out. People went back, comped the numbers. LVN has been more productive than Trey Hendrickson in his first 2 years in the league. So does it mean LVN is going to be as good of a pass rusher as him? What it means is pump your brakes. Let's not run him out of town like we tried to do Devontae Adams his first 2 years in the league. So moving on to number 4 on the list is Elgton Jenkins. The Packers' offensive line was a weak point in 2024, particularly at center, where Josh Myers underperformed. Green Bay addressed this by signing Aaron Banks and drafting Anthony Belton, but did not replace Myers directly. Enter Elgton Jenkins, whose versatility across 4 offensive line positions makes him a prime candidate to shift to center, where he played in college. Despite a minor off-field incident, I think we talked about that. He just wanted a discount. He wanted a refund. That's all he wanted was a refund. And ongoing contract discussions due to the lower pay at center, Jenkins' potential move could significantly strengthen the line. If he and the team resolve these issues, Jenkins, alongside a healthy Jordan Morgan, could solidify the front. I can't think of a year where I've been more excited to follow camp and the camp updates with the offensive line than this year. Emilio, what do you think about this Elgton Jenkins making the list? I worry, man. I worry that this is going to carry into training camp. I pray to sweet baby Jesus it doesn't, because if we got Elgton Jenkins at center, I think our offensive line is going to take a huge step forward.
Yeah, and I think, like we were talking earlier, I think it needs to get done before the middle of June, before it really starts to go quiet over there, and let's get this taken care of before they all kind of go on break and get that quick reset before camp. But, yeah, Elgton Jenkins is going to be a key. He's the one planning on starting to play every time. If not, it's going to be Monk. I don't think we've seen enough from him. I don't think Matt LaFleur is ready to base his offense on a rookie center, or not a rookie center, but a first-year center starting like that. So I think that that really is going to be a huge piece. Maybe the Packers got themselves in a pickle paying Banks and all that, but I think that they can be fair enough to Allen and still get this taken care of so that everyone's happy. But absolutely, you're going from where the ball's starting to the most important player that we have on this list at number 1. I think he has to be on there.
Yeah. I struggled with this one as well. I had to take Jenkins off my top 5 simply because the distraction. And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I almost am team Elgton as far as what they're trying to force him to do. But when I looked along that offensive line, unfortunately, I don't see Elgton Jenkins as an outspoken leader as much as I'd like to. And I see more of like a Zach Tom being more of that, like, hey, that's the guy that's going to be filling the roles. Zach Tom didn't make my top 5 either. I'm just saying.
Jacob, who did you put on did you even write any names down on this top 5?
Brenton Cox Jr., Brenton Cox
I
Jr.
mean,
Yes.
seriously, it's like
Think about it. Who are the 5 best rush of all time?
seriously
I
puts
love
J
it.
Love on there and just puts an arrow pointing down. Just 1 through 5 is J Love.
Well, I don't want to ruin the
The suspense of
The
who's
suspense.
on this list. It
But
better
if you
be
want-
Travis, it better be Travis Glover, Brenton Cox.
Get out of here. Get out of here. I don't know. I expect him to be more of a team guy. I would expect him to be more of a leader, and I just haven't gotten the expectations out of him. I attribute him to more of the type of feelings I have towards Kenny Clark, where it's like, hey, man, we pay you, and we have so much faith in you, and we prop you up as if you're like one of the best guys on our team, and I just don't consistently see that type of payout, I guess, is my gripe.
Got it. Tim, you got anything to add, brother?
Nothing that I don't think we've covered. I'm looking at my list because I was kind of going back and forth between Big E and Zach Tom as far as O linemen. And I think Jacob's right. I think, at the end of the day, it's Zach Tom. Zach Tom's probably the most valuable offensive lineman on this team, arguably. I think you can debate it, but I think it's pretty close. That being said, though, I also agree with Jacob's point that, maybe Elton's not the most vocal rah-rah, bring the locker room together kind of leader. He's more of a, hey, I go out and do my job. You guys do your job. We'll all do our job together and win ball games kind of guy, lead by example. But at the end of the day, your center is a valuable piece of this O-line. We talk about those positions of importance. So my only question is beyond Big E, if we get this sorted out and, everything works like it should, if he goes down for some reason, we're shuffling the line. We're going to move somebody into that position, and it could affect another position. I mean, I look at the we were on the what was that site the other day? Our Lads way too early depth chart.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at center, it's Elton Jenkins, Jacob Monk, and Trey Hill, according to them right now. And I don't know if Trey Hill or Jacob Monk would be my second choice at backup center. I think I'd almost rather see Sean Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd almost rather see possibly moving Zach Tom there and maybe moving, a Jordan Morgan to right tackle or something in a pinch. But the point I'm trying to make is I don't think we should gloss over the fact that, it sounds like a plug and play option here. We move on from Josh Myers. You move Big E over to center. You load up at guard and tackle. We're all good. Okay, well, if things with Big E don't pan out or, something goes sideways, what is the answer? Because when it comes to QB1, I've said this for a number of years. I want to see him get his Frank Winters or get his center of choice with some consistency that he can build, a relationship with, and those guys can, without even speaking, they know what's going on with that offense. And I think, Elton Jenkins, he's at 30 right now. He's looking to get some contractual security here as he moves into a new role. I don't know, even if this does end up great, how long-term of a solution that is for us at center. So I think Big E is very important based on what, the direction that, we're looking at sending him in with this team. But I do have a question mark at center beyond Elton Jenkins.
Yeah. And I will say this. I know Eric Sutherland bring up get his Scott Wells.
There you go.
Aaron didn't have Scott Wells for that long, though.
What about Corey? Was Corey Linsley a center?
He was.
I was going to say, I think Corey Linsley was Aaron's center longer than Scott Wells, right?
Probably would have been, but even Corey Linsley, they refused to pay, and they moved right on to Josh Myers, and that was, it's just like.
And Corey Linsley, if I'm not mistaken, another guard converted to center, correct?
I think so.
Didn't he start as a guard?
I'm not sure. I want to say Corey Linsley played center at Ohio State.
Actually, I was going to say Ohio State. We've just been cranking through Ohio State centers, man.
And I remember when I first started doing the pod, I kept pointing out, like, man, I think center's more important than the Packers give it credit for, because you look up at the great teams, they have great centers. The Eagles for so long was Jason Kelce, right? And Jason Kelce helped them. I mean, they included Jason Kelce on the drafting of his replacement, and he handpicked for the Eagles. Here's the dude you want. He worked with him, molded him into the center.
Yep. Who played guard? I'm pretty sure they had him at guard, getting reps next to the center, so that they were getting him used to it.
And then, of course, Kansas City, you know, how many championships they've won, and they got Creed Humphrey. And again, that's not to continue to dog on Goody for taking Josh Myers over Creed Humphrey. You're going to miss on picks. But when you miss, damn, don't wait 4 years to admit it. Like it's that important. That's why I got so excited about Elgton Jenkins. I personally think Elgton Jenkins will be the best center the Packers have had since Corey Linsley.
Corey Linsley, yeah, I would agree.
Do you guys remember the stint where I see people in here bringing up Jeff Saturday? Remember when Saturday came over to the Packers,
I got
played
excited
terribly, and then won the Pro Bowl? Remember, he went to the Pro Bowl that year.
He got benched and still made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, dude.
That's when everybody was like, all right, this Pro Bowl thing, this probably ain't the real deal. So, but yeah, Tim, to say one more thing too, when you said, you know, Trey Hill, there's no way the Packers have Trey Hill over Sean Ryan or maybe even Zach Tom. I personally think, let's say Elgton Jenkins does not play for the Packers. I don't even want to think about it. Let's just say it happens. It's going to be probably a two-man training camp race between Jacob Monk and Sean Ryan. And if neither of them prove they can play center, they would probably kick Zach Tom to center and then put, you know, Belton at right tackle, maybe Jordan Morgan at right, you know, something like that before they would go with Trey Hill at center.
I agree. Yeah. 100%. Because you can trust Sean Ryan at right guard in a pinch.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
So, all right, let's see here. Dave's MX6 says J.C. Treader was the center but got injured and was replaced.
That's what I was thinking.
That's right. And
Treader was the convert.
I like
right?
Treader
a guard, and then he became a center.
Where did J.C. Treader play?
Maybe that's what I'm thinking, because I know you're right. Corey Linsley was a center in college.
He went on to play a pretty decent career, I thought.
I'm trying to think of where he played college ball, because if he was Ohio State, that's going to be hilarious. Surely he wasn't, right?
All right, chat. Where'd J.C.
No,
Treader go to college?
do you want to know where he went to school?
Oh,
Jacob?
I see it.
Don't even.
Go ahead, man.
Cornell University. Ever heard of it?
It really was.
Here comes trouble.
I remember why they moved on from J.C. Treader. They didn't say it, you know, the quiet part out loud, thank God. But he became a huge players rep. And it was as soon as he became that, I think he was the union president or the players representative president or whatever that title is. Packers are like, yeah, let's get his ass out of this locker room as soon as possible. It's exactly what happened there. All right. Moving on. Anything else on offensive line, guys? Anything at all?
No.
All right. Let's move it along to number 5. This one's pretty cool, man. Dontavion Wicks. The Packers wide receiver group disappointed in 2024 with Christian Watson sidelined with an ACL injury. Romeo Doubs facing suspensions and concussions. And both Jaden Reed and Dontavion Wicks struggling with drops. Wicks, however, stands out for his ability to get open thanks to his size, route running, and speed. His biggest issue, catching the ball, must be addressed to capitalize on Green Bay's need for separation in the passing game. If Wicks can emulate early career Devontae Adams and step up, he could become a key weapon. Failure to do so may see him replaced given the team's draft investments. And I know this is about Dontavion Wicks, and I don't want to steer it too far away from it, but seeing Savion Williams at OTAs yesterday and how smooth he looked out of his breaks, I was like, boy, because when you turn on the tape in college, you see him run a route and you go, how did he not have more numbers? And then you dig deeper into the tape, you realize, oh, okay, they were just throwing him all over the place, backfield, wildcat quarterback, all over. This dude is a good route runner. I'm not saying he's Wicks level route running, but Savion might surprise people. Watch Matthew Golden be the biggest bust in Packers history, and Savion Williams be a damn Hall of Famer. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
Dude, I can both be Hall of Famers. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Let's go.
I honestly think I don't want to say anything bad about Golden because obviously he's a Packer and I'm going to have his back completely. I'll just say that I was not intrigued. One, I didn't think it would be a possibility for him to fall, but after the draft was done, dude, when I watched Savion Williams, and again, like you said, Clay, he is so multifaceted, and I hate when people label him, he's a gadget player like Cordarrelle Patterson. No, he's not. Cordarrelle Patterson did not have the type of bona fides and the route running and the skills. Do you watch this guy catch the ball, like contested catches, going up like I'm talking 40+ vert? I guarantee you that when the tape is on, that guy can jump out of the stadium. And again, the Wildcat, some of the way he was able to run, he doesn't look like a typical wide receiver that's getting an end around or anything like that. The dude looks like he's a running back that is 6'4". It's just, it's crazy. I'm excited. I think that if I had to put money on it, I'd put the money that he has a better career than Golden.
It's funny, Emilio, because this is supposed to be about Dontavion Wicks, and we're kind of talking about Savion and how excited we are about the wide receiver room. And it's like, do you think Wicks doesn't? I mean, he's not watching this show, I promise you that. But do you think he doesn't realize? I better play my best ball this year.
And let's not forget he's been in the lab cooking for the last 6 months. It's never stopped for him. I think arguably Tay Wicks, other than Christian Watson coming off an injury, and then these rookies that we have, I think Tay Wicks might be the hungriest wideout we have on this team.
I think it's a great point, Tim, because you heard Bird say it. There was already talk in the building that we were going to get another wide receiver, right? So they already knew that was going to happen. They knew that they were bringing in competition before the draft even started. So I'm sure he talked to Bird, he talked to Christian Dobbs, all them, and I think it's, dude, you got to put up or shut up. You got to just put your best foot out there. It's going to be the offensive line all over. Our best 5 are going to be out there. The best 5 are going to play. We're not running 5 wide anymore. That's not our offense. I think that, we could, potentially, if we have that kind of wide receiver core, imagine, J Love going out and setting up 5 wide. That'd be a lot of fun, but I don't see it happening all the time. And it's not like we can be reliant on getting reps just because, you're the 5th wide receiver down there. You really got to step up and show up.
I think that's a big reason why, like Clayton mentioned, Goody with, grabbing these young receivers and being able to keep that pocketbook light, right? Keep your salary cap light, keep your guaranteed money light down the road. But I also think it speaks to the fact that, much like we've done with the quarterback position over, the last 2+ decades here, is you're constantly bringing in top tier draft picks and you're making everyone in that room better. I mean, like to your point, Emilio, that's a good problem to have. Is we just basically put these guys, Reed, Dobbs, Wicks, Scoot when he gets back. These guys are all on notice. You don't think they know that there's young, hungry, talented wide receivers on this depth chart? So I think it's going to make our offense that much better. And, if Tay Wicks steps up and really, makes another huge step in his young career, man, it's going to make us that much more dynamic, I think.
Well, I know one thing, that when some of the older dancers aren't performing at the club, we bring in a couple of young bucks and all of a sudden them boys are up and down that pole like you never believe.
All of a sudden that hip.
You think God never farted?
All right. That's a hell of a way to end hour 1, but that's going to do it. For those of you listening on the pod, we're going to continue this list with the honorable mentions and get the guys list here in not the guys on the poll list, but the guys list of their top 5. Yeah, we'll see you on the other side. Appreciate you.